Good afternoon. This is Peter Anzio with PD Programming, and I will be presenting a new charm. This charm is a short video demonstration of how to create a category list in Crash Magic. So category lists normally can just be created by using a wizard. That's described well in the manual. You just say create a new category list and you pick the categorical field. Today's charm is going to describe how to create a category list from scratch, so that's for a non-categorical field or when you want to combine categorical fields. So here we go. First thing I'm going to do is I'm taking a look at this diagram, and I can see there's a lot of crashes, but I have a feeling that many of them are not right at the intersection. There's some distance from it. So I'm going to take a look at my, I have a listing here that I've created that happens to include a column for the distance from the intersection. And so that field's called feet from. And indeed, when I look at feet from, there's a lot of different values in that field, and some of them are pretty far. We're pretty far from the intersection. And there's a lot of ways that Crash Magic can handle that. We can filter on them. We can do a lot of different stuff. What we're going to do right now, though, is we want to create a category list so we can look, for example, at a chart or do some highlighting based on the distance from the intersection. So here we go. First thing I'm going to do to create any category list, it's easiest to start with a chart. And I can choose any chart. I'm going to choose day of week because we need a template. We need something to work from. So we're starting with some kind of a template here. And here's our day of week chart. We're going to jump in and we're going to change that. So I'm clicking here to create, to change the category list. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new category list. Here's my new category list, has nothing in it. And I'm going to go select edit. So a category list is simply a list of what we refer to as bins, but basically places where data should go, and they should be mutually exclusive. So what we're looking at here is we want to find all of those crashes that are 0 feet from the intersection. Let's actually fill these in first. I'm going to say 0. I'm going to add another one that's called within 50. That's within 50 feet of the intersection. I'm going to add another one that's going to be within 150 feet of the intersection. Going to add another that's within 300 feet of the intersection. And finally, we're going to do one that is beyond 300 feet from the intersection. Okay, right now, we haven't done anything interesting in the chart. We've created some bins, but they all say true. So that means that crashes that are at any distance from the intersection want to go into every single one of those bins. And to be honest, that'll actually cause an error when you try to run it. The program will say, hey, crashes are dropping into all the bins. You're not categorizing them. So the first thing I'm going to do is I want to say 0 has to be where that distance that we saw, that feet from, was 0. This button here lets us create expressions, helps us along, validates them for us. So rather than just typing it into condition, I'm going to start here. Now it says true, and I could just delete that. I'm going to click on clear expression. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go find the feet from, letting this editor help me. So I go find feet from equal. Now it's fortunate I actually have a 0 in here. Because this is not a categorical field, this list box may not always be populated. What it's populated with right now is sample values from this particular study. So that particular diagram, these are the values within it. And so sometimes you'll have these filled out. Sometimes there'll be too many and it won't actually show you any values in there at all. For right now, we're fortunate. It has a 0, so I'm just going to say add to expression. And now feet from equals 0. I save that. And now the 0 bin has a condition of feet from equal to 0. I'm going to choose a slightly lighter color for that. And now we're going to work on the next one. So we're going to choose within 50. So within 50, we're going to go create a new expression. Once again, clicking on this button. And within 50, we'll once again clear the expression. And what we'll do, here's sort of the more complicated way of creating this expression. So I'll show you some neater ones in a minute. But let's go feet from. And we want to say that it's greater than or equal to, GTE. GT is just greater than. We want to actually capture the value 1. I don't see any value 1 in there, so I'm going to actually have to type that in. I'm going to let a 0 go in its place. But what I want to see is feet from is greater than or equal to the number 1. Okay? But we also want it to be less than or equal to 50. So I'm going to say it's and feet from is less than or equal to LTE 50. And here we actually have the value 50 in there. We're fortunate we can just stick that in. So now feet from is greater than or equal to 1, and feet from is less than or equal to 50. All right, so we choose save to that, and we'll again choose a somewhat of a lighter color. We're going to sort of gradiate up here. Okay, within 150. So I said there's an easier way to do this. We actually have a function in here that helps us do ranges like this without having to put parentheses in and greater than equal and all that stuff. Once again, I'm going to clear the true that's up there. And the function that we've got, the easiest way to find it is to look in our calculated fields list, and it's called logic because it lets you, it might be a numeric, in range, in range, in range. It's actually a mathematical function, so it's a math function. So you come in here and you see in range, and it says here that in range returns true if a number, that's this, is greater than or equal to a number 2, and a number is less than or equal to a number 3. Well, that's just what we've been trying to create, right? We've been doing that manually. So I'm going to insert this function, and it's saying in range, and it wants to know what the value is we're checking for. We want to know what the beginning and ending of the range are. So in this case, I'm going to say feet from, and now I want to look from 51, because we did up to 50, 51 to 150. Note that we're making sure we don't overlap on 50. I'll show you where that could cause a problem. So right now, in range just says feet from 51 to 150. Now I'm going to cheat a little bit here. This is what I would do if I was building this myself normally. I'm going to copy that. So I select copy the in range. I say within 300. I'm just going to delete this, paste this in. I don't have to go into my editor or anything. And I'm going to say we're going to run from 151 to 300. So that means it's going to be everything inclusive, 151 all the way up to 300. And the last one that we're going to do, that completes that one. I don't have to go into the editor or anything. The other one is beyond 300. And so what this one's going to look like, and we could go in and we could use the editor, but if you just know how to type it, it's feet from is greater than 300. Just makes it nice and quick. So let's take a look at the colors we had chosen. We chose white. We chose sort of a very light gray. We're going to choose, Navajo white. Choose something a little bit darker, dark gray. I doubt we're going to find a very dark gray. Let's see what we can put in there. We'll choose, well, there's a dim gray. That ought to work. So now we've covered all those cases. And here's our range of distances. And what this shows us is the number of crashes that are at the intersection, 0 feet, the number of crashes that are within 50 feet, within 150 feet, within 300 feet, and beyond 300 feet. And the system didn't complain, so all of those expressions look like they're good. I would then name this, if I'm creating a category list, I would name this, and I'd call this, for example, feet from. We'll click on rename. So now we have a category list like that. Worth noting, one error that can occur. I'm going to go in and edit, and I'm going to make a mistake in my editing here. This is kind of a common mistake to do in any number of ways. But let's just say that when I'm editing my within 300, I set this thing up so that accidentally I'm going from 51. I forget to make an overlap. I could say 150. I'm not sure if we actually have a 150 in there. I'm going to just go from 51 to 300. It was a mistake when I punched that in. I'm going to save this, and I'm going to run it. And what it's going to do is it's going to try to put one crash in each bin, and it's going to complain. It says this chart contains at least one record that was placed into more than 2 or more bins. This is the result of an incorrect chart definition. It's not going to show you that chart because it knows you couldn't have meant to do that. So I'm going to go back and correct that and make sure that each of these is mutually exclusive. So any charts that attempt to put more than one crash in a bin will return an error. All right, so I'm going to go back to 151 here. All right, now topic for another time. If you are trying to create bins where it is possible for crashes to be in both, a common time for that is if you're looking at people or units in the crash and you want to add up, for example, the number of drivers of a particular age or the number of DUIs, then you kind of want them to overlap in the bins, but you want that to be intentional. And if you do that, that's what this checkbox here is for: allow crashes in multiple bins. There's a category list charm and I think a full-on training, a category list full-on training for that, and you can look that up in our YouTube channel. So for right now, we're going to leave this, and we've now created a category list from scratch rather than doing it in the automated fashion. And this is the result of our category list done by scratch. Okay, thanks for joining me, and we'll have more of these in the future. Let us know. Contact us, help@pdmagic.com, if you have ideas for another charm or a full-on training you'd like to see. Thanks.